You're listening to the Mind Manual Podcast, episode 56, Healing from Reflux. If you want a particular result in your life, but you're unable to get it, tune in to start training your brain and expanding your emotional intelligence to unlock the most powerful and underutilized performance tool that we have. It's the most important work you could do because it affects every area of your life. Have you ever had a symptom that slowly became your normal? The kind that starts as an occasional nuisance and almost without noticing turns into the background hum of your life. Today's episode is about that quiet creep and the courage it takes to ask, but why is this happening to me in the first place? Our guest has lived with reflux for nearly 30 years, 3 decades of burning. For many, it's sleeping propped up, of planning meals and evenings around a body that feels unpredictable. Like so many people, she did what any of us would do. She managed antacids, then stronger medications, then higher doses. Relief, yes, some, but never resolution. And that's where this conversation matters far beyond reflux, because for millions of people, the story is similar. A label, a pill, a little bit of relief. And then life goes on until it doesn't. Let's name something out loud. Our medical system is extraordinary at crisis care. If you're bleeding, if you can't breathe, if you need a life-saving intervention, thank goodness for modern medicine. But when it comes to chronic symptoms, things like reflux, IBS, IBD, chronic fatigue, joint pain, skin issues, fibromyalgia, and the list goes on, we often enter a different paradigm. It's a paradigm built on controlling symptoms quickly, with limited time, in appointments, clinical guidelines that prioritize standardization, and insurance structures that rewards volume more than investigation. In that paradigm, the question is often, what will turn down the symptom? Rather than, why is the symptom here? You'll hear how this client started asking why. Why does reflux persist for decades? Why do medications help at first and then seem to lose power? Why does a stomach behave like a pressure cooker? What actually changes when we look under the hood at digestion, stomach acid dynamics, microbial balance, food breakdown, gas production, enzyme output, bile flow, and the quiet conversations between the gut and the brain. You'll hear how she gently tapered off long-term acid suppression with support, how she rebuilt digestive function, how she addressed dysbiosis, which actually, in her case, wasn't an overgrowth, but a deficiency of the beneficial microbes that help us digest, regulate hunger, and calm inflammation. In most cases I treat, it is due to an overgrowth of a particular species that produces an abundance of gas in the form of hydrogen, methane, hydrogen sulfide gas, or carbon dioxide, which will all then follow a different protocol. However, in this case, you'll hear about elimination and reintroduction, approach that revealed her personal triggers and how whole foods and fewer ultra-processed foods became a compass rather than a cage. And maybe my favorite part is how the side effects of this root cause work includes less joint pain, a steadier sense of fullness, and sustainable weight loss without white-knuckling it. This episode isn't about shaming medication. It's about expanding the conversation and seeing through it all. Proton pump inhibitors and antacid medication can be very appropriate. They're short-term tools, but tools are different from destinations. And if the only plan is stay on this forever, we might be turning off the smoke alarm without looking at the fire. So let's take a quick look at what these antacid or proton pump inhibitors are, what they do, and how they were meant to be used. In 2019, research scientists conducted a systematic review, which was the first to evaluate the global proton pump inhibitor use or antacid medication in the general population of more than 28 million users from 65 different countries. It included user demographics, magnitude of use, and the clinical use patterns. And this meta-analysis concluded that the global PPI use is significant, with nearly 25% of the whole adult population being prescribed PPIs. 63% of the users were under the age of 65, and 37% were over the age of 65. Most users were on higher doses, and 25% of PPI users continued therapy for longer than 1 year, with almost a third of the patients continuing over 3 years. Then in 2014, research scientists from Amsterdam and Belgium university hospitals measured the size and acidity of the acid pocket that we have in the stomach. They revealed that those PPIs had their acid pockets shrink from around 15 square centimeters down to around 10 square centimeters, so by a third. And the pH of the acid level went from a highly acidic level with a pH of 1, which is where we should naturally be at, compared to a pH of 4 for those who were on the PPIs. Now, this means that we are building a less acidic environment with a much reduced quantity of acid, which opens up a whole Pandora of problems downstream. When you understand and appreciate the role of this acid, with firstly gastric acid helping to convert pepsinogen into pepsin, which is the chief enzyme in the stomach to break down protein. And if acid is significantly reduced, this activation is impaired, given that pepsin works optimally at very acidic levels of 1. Stomach acid is also a stimulus for downstream digestive processes. The presence of acid in the stomach and the duodenum signals to the duodenum and the pancreas and the gallbladder that food has arrived. And we need to secrete enzymes and pancreatic juice and bile acid. When this acid is suppressed, then that stimulus is blunted and it signals to the brain that digestion has been dialed down. Then we have the dynamics and motility of bile acid. When acid enters the duodenum, it triggers bile release, also known as cholecystokinin, along with other signals. So a blunted acid response will also blunt the biliary flow or alter bile acid signaling. In addition, it also significantly alters the very protective acid barrier and microbiome environment. So when the acid is suppressed, the barrier to pathogens or bacteria migrating from the upper GI tract is weakened. And this change in the pH environment alters both the stomach and the proximal small intestines, which has a ripple effect on the microbiome. So, for example, long-term PPI use is associated with small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, also known as SIBO, and gut dysbiosis. A clinical trial was performed in 2010 at another research hospital to assess the increased incidence of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth during proton pump inhibitor therapy. That study found that 50% of patients using PPI treatment resulted in testing positive to small intestinal bacteria overgrowth as assessed by the standard glucose hydrogen breath test, compared to only 6% from the normal control group. Now that's an increase of over 800% susceptibility for those testing positive to SIBO, or this small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, as a result of proton pump inhibitor use. Now, you may never have heard of SIBO, or small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, as it's known for short, but I can tell you it can be debilitating. Go and do some Googling on it. You will learn how it can massively impact a person's life. Doctors don't know how to treat it, and they will tell you there is no cure for it. In fact, if you go and visit the Mayo Clinic's rundown of it, they don't even mention PPIs as being a risk factor for it. And yet, these clinical studies are revealing that there's an 800% increase in the incidence of SIBO when you use PPIs. Some other interesting stats tells us that PPIs in the form of omeprazole and pantoprazole ranked the third highest prescribed medication in the US, sitting at over 82 million prescriptions in 2023, according to ClinCalc Drug Stats database. Now, they extract all their prescription utilization data in the Drug Stats database, which comes from the Medical Expenditure Panel Survey, which is run by the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality Care in the United States. Now, MEPS records outpatient prescription fills in the US, and then ClinCalc comes and standardizes that data, grouping brand generics, removing incomplete entries to create their rankings. So these PPIs are a significant portion of our pharmaceutical drug companies' income. And yet, the Mayo Clinic, which is the largest integrated not-for-profit medical group practice in the world, fails to mention the use of PPIs as a risk factor for SIBO. The pharmaceutical companies themselves have no mention of this on their warnings list either. In fact, they explicitly say to continue taking omeprazole Sandoz for as long as your doctor tells you to. So they hand over all that risk to the doctor because the doctor has no other alternative for you. Therefore, in many cases, you're left on it for life. I personally know people that have been on it for over 30 years, and now they're in a mess health-wise. So just a few caveats before we go any further. Nothing in this episode is personal medical advice. Don't stop or change any medication without working with your healthcare professional. My aim here is to broaden the lens, to invite thoughtful collaboration, and to help you bring better questions into the room. As you listen to the recap of this journey, notice the mindset shifts. Notice how asking why opens the door that what pill can't. Notice the patience baked into the process of titrating, supporting, rebuilding, reseeding, and reintroducing. Slow can be smooth, and smooth can become fast. So if you've been living with reflux or any chronic symptom that has begun to define you, let this be a gentle reminder that your body is not your enemy here. Symptoms are signals. They are information, and you deserve a plan that listens to them. So let's step out of the symptom management paradigm and into root cause exploration. Here's our conversation of a quick recap. I hope you enjoy. Stay to the end where I address a few other things. Enjoy. So how long has it been now since you started treatment?
6 months, I think it is, yeah.
Okay, 6 months. And can you just give us a little insight, a snapshot of what your life has been like prior to treatment and for how long?
So I think I started getting acid reflux probably in my 20s.
Yep.
And that was manageable because, you just get on with it. And then once I had the kids, when I was pregnant, it got a lot worse.
Yeah.
And then once I had the kids, it just didn't ever seem to go away. That was just the new normal after that. It wasn't something that came and went. It was just kind of a reasonably constant. And then I started on Zantac and that sort of stuff about 6 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah. So prior to that, you just put up with it, the burning,
Yeah, and just took Mylanta and
Had you done any investigation work with it, like to see what it was about, what the cause was?
not initially, but about probably 12 to 18 months ago, I had a gastroscopy and that showed a hiatus hernia, but not too much damage, which was lucky.
Yeah.
That's when I started thinking, well, I probably should do something about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And did the doctors say what you needed to do, like what their advice was and how to treat it?
Yes, lose weight,
Right.
don't drink alcohol,
Yeah.
and probably just keep up with the antacid regime that I was on. Yeah.
Sort of indefinitely.
Yeah.
Yep. For those who might be listening, that medication was never designed to live on
Yeah.
long term.
I mean, they did point out that a lot of my flaws, like my love of lots of fatty food and lots of, drinking wine and having fun and doing all that stuff, and that maybe that I had reached a stage in my life where that possibly wasn't as doable.
Yeah. Okay. So you started going on the proton pump inhibitors, the antacid stuff.
Mhm.
How long ago? How many years?
I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. Had you ever tried to come off it?
No, no, because it was almost like when I first started taking it, it was like, oh my God, this is a miracle. And it's, look at me, I can eat whatever I want. And then after a while, they weren't working as well as they were. And so I was sort of topping up them with a bit of Mylanta or Gaviscon or whatever.
And what dose rate did you get up to with those?
I started on 20 milligrams
Yep.
and then I ended up on 40.
Which is the max dose.
Yeah.
So it just became less and less effective over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you were then still left to keep dosing up on Mylanta and all the rest.
Yeah. Doing a little top up.
Okay. So had you just resigned to the fact that this was your life now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm a clone of my father and he's exactly the same.
Yeah, right.
So he's been on them for a long time as well.
Right. Okay. So when we started the work, the first thing I went to take you off or titrate you down from was those. And that's because, for those that don't know the effect of what they're doing, it's actually turning down the acid. See, doctors think it's an acid problem, and it does present as an acid problem. We've got acid in our esophagus. It hurts and it's corrosive. It leads to Barrett's esophagus and then esophageal cancer.
Yeah.
But it's not an acid problem. It's a gas problem, which is why you have a hiatus hernia. So the food that's not being broken down properly sits in the stomach for way too long, starts to ferment, produces gases from that fermentation process. So it's not getting digested properly. The stomach starts to expand. And as it starts to expand, your stomach starts to stretch and stretch and stretch. And soon you've got a hiatus hernia there. What the antacid medication does, it signals to the brain to dial down the acid. So the solution, the pharmacological solution, is to turn acid off. But the problem is that also signals to the brain that digestion's been turned off. Your pancreas starts to wind down producing digestive enzymes, and your liver starts to wind down in producing bile acid, and then it exacerbates the whole thing that the food is even more so not breaking down properly to where it should be to assist in proper digestion. Not only that, all of the food that we eat is teeming with microbes, and a lot of them are at pathogenic levels. Not enough to make you violently ill and get food poisoning, but they're still there. And over time, but what happens is our stomach acid, because of such a high acidity level, which also gets turned down when you take proton pump inhibitors, so you become less acidic. And so you don't have enough volume there. It turns the volume down so you basically have, let's say, 100% of the volume of acid. It gets turned down to 1/7 of the acid of what you're producing when you take proton pump inhibitors. So acid's not killing those pathogenic bacteria. And so they enter into the abdomen, into the intestines, and they're alive and well and they can adhere to the bowel lining or intestinal wall. Then they start to overgrow and you get dysbiosis that way. So they're actually doing a lot of damage, but it's treating a symptom. It's trying to mask a symptom, but at the same time, it's doing a lot of damage. So that was the first thing we got you off, but we didn't get you off straight away because we needed to give you all the support in making sure that you could, we were taking the more digestive enzymes, digestive bitters, and some gut support supplements to just try and calm things down while we started to titrate you off those. And I think that took about 4 to 6 weeks from memory when you were off from max dose, 40 milligrams, down to nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in your case, you didn't have a pathogenic overgrowth as such in your intestinal tract, but you had deficiency dysbiosis, meaning you had no good bacteria. So I was very surprised to see that there wasn't an overgrowth of something, which is usually the cause of reflux, where the microorganisms that have overgrown are now becoming the dominant species. They're producing a lot of gas, whether that's in the form of methane or hydrogen or carbon dioxide. And it's those gases that are getting trapped in the very delicate small intestine. They're under such pressure that they go and aerosol up, taking the stomach acid with it up into the esophagus. And so it's the gas that's pushing it up. And so yours wasn't that. Yours was a deficiency dysbiosis, meaning you had no good bacteria producing all the great metabolites to go and perform all the functions properly in your body, which one of them includes having your pancreas produce the correct amount of digestive enzymes, which yours wasn't. You had to take all that extra support, and we're now doing intensive triple probiotic therapy, growing up them with the prebiotics, supplements, and then all the foods. But we did put you on an elimination diet, the usual suspects being dairy, gluten, and sugar.
Oh, no, I didn't bother with sugar. I don't have much sugar anyway.
Yeah, you didn't have, yeah, okay. With that, because there's a lot of intolerances that develop with gut dysbiosis to foods. Yeah, with that, and after your titration, I think we had you symptom-free in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had this in your 20s and you're now in your 50s. So we're looking at over 30 years worth that you put up with that, which for many, you know, they didn't get away with it as easy as you in that they've gone on to develop esophageal cancer and all the rest. And then we worked out that you didn't have to give up all the things that you thought.
No,
it wasn't the wine, wasn't the fat.
No, thank God.
But in saying that, we did then transition you on to essentially a whole food diet, which you mostly were on. We just took out the processed stuff, mainly the breads, the flours.
Yeah.
And you didn't really go for the pasta. You didn't really go for the sugar anyway, which was a huge benefit. And then the side benefits of that, joint pain wise, where did that go from?
That reduced significantly.
So to the point where at one point you were taking painkillers to go and play golf. Was that right?
Yeah. Yes. We jokingly called it my performance enhancing drugs. But I don't need those anymore.
You don't need those anymore and you don't have the pains going around the golf course?
No, but my game hasn't improved, which is
right. But the other side benefit that you've experienced is weight loss.
Yeah, 10 kilos.
10 kilos. And you've been on all the diets before?
Oh, yeah, I've been a fabulous dieter all my life, but they only work very short term. But, yeah, without actually really doing anything other than just following those two things, 10 kilos. And I wonder whether that has something to do with not being on all the tablets as well, because I feel like you get better feedback maybe from being full.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So what happens is, you know, insulin resistance, which can set up when we eat processed foods. So when your flours are ground down from the whole grain to a powder, that's now we've got a concentrated form of energy. Your sugar, when you do eat sugar, whether that be from the wine, sugar in the wine or whatever, that's also a very concentrated energy. Now, bad bacteria love nothing more than cheap energy in the form of sugar, flour, and they also thrive in dairy. You're selecting for your bad species in feeding them up. But not only that, when that microbiota shift takes place because of what you're feeding it, they regulate our hormones, including our hunger hormones. Mm-hmm. So your insulin, your leptin, your ghrelin. So if people are insulin resistant, all their hunger hormones are out of whack. Their body, their brain's not receiving the signals to stop eating. They're still hungry even though they've eaten all this food. It's always a struggle because you're fighting against your hormones, and our hormones drive the show.
Yeah.
In all respects. What is happening now that your microbiome's coming back into balance, you're receiving the signals properly. You're receiving the full signal now, whereas that was being blocked before. And inflammation can block the signals as well. And a gut that's in a state of dysbiosis tend to have a lot of inflammation associated with it because our immune system, 70 to 80% of our immune system is in the gut. It's just outside the intestinal wall lining. And so a lot of people with gut dysbiosis will go on to develop leaky gut. And the first thing when that undigested food leaches out when it shouldn't be through the holes and cracks is it comes across the immune system. And that's first response for the immune system is inflammation.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. And that inflammation gets into your joints as well, which you were experiencing. Fibrin from the wheat also gets into the joints. And it just doesn't metabolize things well properly. Yeah, the side benefits, aside from your reflux, is your joint pain's not there anymore and you've lost 10 kilos. And you're feeling fuller, are you?
Yeah. Once I eat, I feel more satisfied, if you know what I mean. Like it's not, yeah.
And when you get the right combination of foods together, so when you're getting your right protein, the good fats and the fiber, all three together have a very different synergistic effect on those hunger hormones, influencing all of that microbiota. You're getting the right signals to your brain. This GLP-1, the Ozempic and Wegovy, all that's doing is signaling to the brain, pretending with the brain to slow it all down, to get the feeling of that fullness being there, like you don't need to eat anymore. And a lot of people aren't eating. They're not feeding the good bacteria. It's actually really bad for the GI tract. They get in a lot of distress with that, and people eventually have to go off it because of that. Not only that, it's really expensive. So they're not addressing the nutrition behind it all that supports it and the balancing of the microbiome. So again, it's a Band-Aid. You're going to have to go back straight away to all the old habits and all the ways of eating that set this problem up in the first place. And most people are walking around with an imbalance in their gut microbiome, and all the digestive diseases that you can put a label to all come back to that imbalance in that microbiome. And it just depends on which species has overgrown as to which disease profile sets up from there. At the moment, you're reintroducing some of the foods back we just spoke about before, and you didn't react, but the whole idea is to go low and slow again as we reintroduce.
Yeah, and I have put in a little bit of lactose-free dairy.
Yeah? How did that go?
Yeah, not too bad. I still can't go, crazy.
Crazy, no.
I've been having lactose-free yogurt and introduced a little bit of Parmesan as well.
Yep, and you're okay with that?
Yeah.
So, low and slow. And now we're seeing that signs of real healing taking place. So food intolerances like that are recoverable with the healing, with the protocol, with the repair, with the refeeding and reseeding of your good bacteria and the digestive enzymes that can handle all of that. Eat it all, break it down, all the things. Otherwise, if it's not breaking down and they're not eating it all, you've got all the excess gas to deal with, whether that be in the form of lower abdominal bloating or upper gas.
Upper gas is so much better because that was my main problem.
Yeah. And so if you stick to the protocol that we've got, you don't have any of that anymore.
No.
Did you ever have any lower abdominal gas bloating?
No.
It was all upper.
It was all upper, yeah.
And mindset-wise, in relation to the food, how is that all now? Is there much noise going on?
There's always noise. I still dream about cheese, but I try to remind myself that is all worth it.
Yeah. And is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you still feel slightly ripped off when you're having hummus and everyone else is having brie. But, that's just life. You just got to get on with it.
And we did speak just prior to, for those rare occasions, for the exceptions where you really do want to indulge, if you just take that digestive enzyme with the lactose and the lipase in it prior to that, you should be able to handle it a lot better.
Yeah, I've just got to be sensible. And it's easier to be sensible when you know the consequences are going to be not worth it.
Well, and that's it. You lived with, I mean, was it a major inconvenience and discomfort for you for 30 years having that reflux there?
It just became normal.
Yeah. And you were lucky enough that it didn't set up further down the track in other disease profiles.
No, I think I'm just lucky that I addressed it when I did.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. And sitting across from the guy who did my gastroscopy, I sat down and I thought, oh, this is a weird chair. And it's a chair designed for really, really big people.
Yeah.
And as I was sitting on that chair, I was thinking, oh my God, I don't want to fill this up.
Yeah.
I don't want to be then sitting there and going, oh, now I've got 25 kilos to lose instead of 10 or 15.
And maybe diabetes to go along with that. And
exactly, yeah. And that is family trait as well.
yeah. And with the family traits, there can be a genetic factor involved, but epigenetics determines whether we turn on those genes or silence them, turn them off.
Yeah.
And that's something totally within our control.
Mm.
So our genetic blueprint is not our destiny. We have control over whether we silence those genes, switch them off, or turn them on, activate them. And that is done simply through these dietary lifestyle choices that we make, and or not getting to the root cause of a gut dysbiosis that's occurred.
Mm.
And you were lucky, you had quite limited symptoms and side effects of your deficiency dysbiosis, whereas it can be a very extensive list for many others, including diarrhea, constipation, autoimmune disease, skin conditions and rashes, headaches, brain fog, because the blood-brain barrier becomes leaky as well, not just our gut. The toxins go to our brain, cause a lot of headaches, migraines, brain fog. I don't think you had any of that.
No. But I'm glad I didn't have to go so far down the road to try and reverse that too.
Yeah. Just another success story. Thanks for that.
That's all right. No worries.
Hope you enjoyed that. So let's take a breath and check in to see what landed for you. Maybe it was the moment you realized how easy it is to normalize discomfort. Maybe it was the idea that reflux isn't only about acid, it can be about pressure and gas, about food that triggers and lingers for too long, about enzymes and bile, and the orchestra of microbes that helps us turn meals into substances that our body needs to function as a human. Maybe it was a reminder that medication can quiet a symptom while unintentionally turning down the very digestive processes that we need to heal. Not right or wrong, just incomplete. Here are the big threads I hope you carry with you. Ask why early and often, not what suppresses this, but what's driving this. Is it motility, microbial imbalance, low stomach acid in the context of long-term suppression, deficient enzymes, food triggers, stress physiology? Multiple small things add up. And then support. If you and your clinician decide to reduce acid suppressing medication, do it with the supporting scaffolding that will make that transition possible and heal the underlying root cause. Test, don't guess, then reintroduce with curiosity. An elimination phase can be a short-term investigation, not a long life lesson. And reintroduction will then become your data, and your body is the lab that gives you that biofeedback. So low and slow wins the race. Then there are whole foods that can change the whole terrain. When we reduce ultra-processed foods and build meals around protein, fiber, and healthy fats, our hunger hormones start to regulate. Blood sugar starts to steady, and the microbiome begins to remember how to collaborate with us. So healing does pay compound interest. Our guest came in for reflux and left with calmer joints, steadier appetite signals, and a body that felt more trustworthy. When you heal the system, The side effects will surprise you. Hippocrates, the forefather of modern medicine, said it himself that all disease begins in the gut. So I want to leave you with a gentle reality check about the system we're all inside. Most clinicians are doing their best within the constraints, which includes the limitations of their education, the paradigm of treating disease and all their symptoms with a pill, of short visits, algorithmic guidelines, and productivity pressures. They too are a victim of a broken system that skews the population into becoming customers of the pharmaceutical industries for life. The system rewards speed. Root work cords rewards nuance. That's not a moral failing, it's a mismatch, which is why becoming an active participant in your care matters so much. So a few reflective prompts to take into your week. Which symptom in your life has you quietly accepted as just me? What would change if you treated it as a message? If you asked why 3 times about that symptom, where would it lead? Why is it here? Why now? Why does it flare when it does this? What's one supportive action that you can take at your next meal time, whether it be more chewing, more fiber, more protein, or even a pause to breathe, so your body doesn't have to shout to be heard? And who's on your team? Do you have a practitioner who's willing to explore root causes with you and collaborate on evidence-based plans? As always, nothing here replaces personalized medical guidance. So if today's episode stirred something for you, bring your questions to a trusted clinician. Ask for partnership. Ask for a plan that goes beyond suppression and towards restoration. And while you're there, go and have a look at the work we're doing over at centerforddigestivehealth.com to see how we can help. I haven't yet not been able to reverse reflux. So if this conversation helped you, or if you thought of someone that you love who has been living with reflux, share this episode. It might be the nudge they need to start asking better questions. And if you found value here, rate and review the show, which will help more listeners find us. Thank you for being here, for your curiosity, for your courage to ask why. Your body is designed to heal when it's given the chance. Until next time, be kind to yourself. Eat like you're building a future you love. And remember, relief is good, but resolution is way better. We'll see you next time.